It's you.
Was poppin', was poppin', was poppin'. Welcome, Nicky and Moose. I'm Nicky. That's Moose. What's up, Moose?
What up, y'all?
And welcome to the live show. And today, episode 114, I believe. 114? 114
114
dropped.
is right.
Okay, the audio
114.
experience dropped, so definitely go check that out. For all our live people and replay, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, if we add any kind of value, definitely hit that super chat, super thanks. And if you're watching this on Facebook, hit those stars. It supports the channel. We appreciate you much, 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 right? Moose, how we feeling?
Yeah, feeling good, man. Just like we were talking, finishing off this year and finding balance between getting ready for next year. So it's a nice little back and forth that I'm doing, but feeling good, pretty overall. It's been a good year, that's for sure. But yeah, just looking to last whatever we got left, man. I'm just trying to squeeze every ounce of it. But for sure, when you think about planning for next year simultaneously, it's an interesting bout.
Yeah, I don't like
Yeah.
doing it simultaneously. It's one or the other for me. It's one or the
Yeah.
other for me. Does this
Yeah.
whole, I can multitask very well. Some things I just choose not to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm terrible at multitasking, so I shouldn't even I shouldn't even be in this predicament. But yikes! Yeah. Now,
Okay,
hopefully not much longer though. Yeah.
so before we get a little into the conversation, then what? Even though you're trying to figure out the balance, right? Is there like one thing that has been working for you where you're still giving the power to the now of this year, but properly strategizing for next year? Is there at least one thing that works so far?
Yeah, I'm noticing, and the truth is, the reason why it's a little bit difficult right now is because I'm trying to do really three things, not just two, right? So I'm looking to finish off the year strong. I'm trying to get refreshed and refurbished for next year, and I'm also like mentally and physically get some rest or reset for next year, and then also doing the whole strategy thing for next year. So it's like really three different compartments if you think about them. But I will say the one thing that is working is pulling out the whiteboard and just going back to the fundamentals. You know, I love me a whiteboard and just
Swear
being
you
able
do.
to give me 3 4 hours on a whiteboard, and I can solve a lot of problems in a little bit of time with that. So yeah, that tends to be still the undefeated move for me. A couple hours on a
Yeah.
whiteboard.
That's hilarious. If all fails,
Yeah. Whiteboard. I
always
got to
go
find a way
back
to
to
make
it.
some more money off some whiteboards for real because yeah, whiteboards been a blessing, man. I don't know. Are you still doing like the metaverse meetings and all that?
So no, we went back to Zoom,
Okay.
right? But we are being more intentional with focus time. So
Mm.
because Zoom can be very distracting, right? Now we're dedicating a whole separate day to just one or two topics.
That's
So
dope.
yeah, and then we have actually an in-person meeting next week, I believe. Next week.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah. But the only reason why we're not doing the metaverse meetings is because they did a whole migration, and some people can't get on. So until that tech issues are fixed, we'll go on Zoom. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Until Apple pull up with some new, some new joints.
Listen,
That's the fix.
listen. Yeah, I don't want to get into the tech talk. I promise you, I don't want to get into the tech talk.
Oh
Shout out to
man.
everybody who's watching us live. Especially shout out to everybody who's part of Deeper Than the Brand. I see the hashtag in the building. We're trying to convert low key Moose to go into Deeper Than the Brand, but that's another topic, another
How did I do
day.
that?
We're
We
gonna,
didn't, we
huh?
didn't, I said, how do I do that? What do I got to do? I'm
We
converted.
can figure it out. We can.
I thought I was, I thought I
No,
was
but like
converted
you're
already.
like no,
I thought
because
I was
like
converted, y'all.
no. So people, let's have an honest conversation. So there's been like little things like the content stuff. We're like here you go, here you go. It's for you, right? Bringing people. Shout out to the people who part deeper than the brand. Now starting to see deeper than the brand. Now it's more like how can we get Moose active into something part of deeper than the brand? Just little low key stuff. We started high. I'm gonna be honest with you. I gave him a position that normally people would not turn down. Right? We went high. It didn't work with Moose. It didn't work. So now we're gonna go. We're gonna go gradually high. We're gonna be like, hey, you know what? Got this idea that would involve the podcast. You know what I mean? Like, what's your thoughts on it? Like, we're about to divide certain things. I have a whole master plan for 2023 that he really doesn't know about. But low key, Moose will one day rock a deeper than the brand hat, and he will officially be in. And the real goal is to get him in that varsity jacket. But we'll talk about it another day. We'll talk about it another day. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
It seems like there is codes tied to the varsity and the hat.
I'm just
like
saying.
Like I like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's only certain people that have certain hats. There's only certain people that have the jacket. You know what I mean? Like, merch is starting to roll out. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it. What are we talking about today?
I love it.
Well, even though that kind of represents community. So,
yeah.
But what are we talking about today?
I love it, man. Well, listen, going back to last week, we literally ended on, for those, shout out to everybody who was with us last week, by the way. Thank you for coming back again for the continuation of last week's conversation this week, which I think is just going to be really fire because last week we closed the conversation talking about the importance of revenue. Now, if y'all, some of you remember, Nicky was saying, just like, hey, why is it important for people to generate revenue, or why is that a big focus for you? And, I got into the specifics of a little bit, or just at least started talking about it briefly, but we really want to dive into the topic today. Now, to set it up and really make it a full hour-long conversation, I kind of want to put out this question, and it's not going to be so much of a debate, but definitely something to help us wrap our minds around what are our choices and why set it up this way, right? Because if you think about it, if you are involved in the online space today, if you're building a brand or trying to grow your business online, in most cases, you're technically doing both, right? It's both in one. That's really what it's becoming now. You are ultimately working between community and revenue. And what I mean by that is you're giving people community, you're giving people a community element or a community experience for them to be a part of, where they lock arms with like-minded individuals and they help each other on the journey to achieve the thing that they're out to achieve. And or you're also giving them access to solve their biggest pain point, which in my opinion is revenue, right? Because if you think about it, community is more of the beginning of the journey. It's the encouragement of stuff, the coming together. It helps you to unlock so much in maybe stuff that you haven't seen in yourself. And it puts you in motion to finally say like, man, you know what? I can do that. So in a lot of ways, it's personal transformation. It's life-changing. It's incredibly encouraging and engaging. Now, on the flip side of it, when you start getting on the business realm, you can have all of those things, but you can still lack one thing, which is the one thing that puts you in motion to have an actual business, which is revenue. And so early on in kind of my career, I floated in and out of this idea of pushing people into the space to say, hey, you have to go do this, or you have to go that way, because I didn't want to be, say, aggressive, or I didn't want to hijack people's methods for doing things. But now I'm recognizing that, and I guess this is where the conversation starts, but equally important to community, at some point, you got to push people out there to generate revenue and stand on their, two legs to make this thing happen. So as far as my beliefs, and I guess I'll start, and then I'm sure you will you'll take on the community aspect. But my beliefs around why it's so important, it's because I think there is a very beautiful, almost personal power and in what people say they want around financial freedom and to be able to build something that they can pass on to the next generation or their children or their family and make it happen. I think none of that happens unless you build an actual tangible business that is revenue generating. And so the personal reason for why I'm seeing that to be important is it ties to a lot of the generational values and goals that we really want to make happen. And I think a lot of our people are now starting to recognize the importance of it. But the beautiful thing is they're also starting to see the possibility of it. And so where I believe there is maybe a small shortage of knowledge around how to make that happen, how to actually walk in the business world without undercutting each other, without manipulation or some of the just bad business behavior or bad business tactics that might exist in today's world, I do believe there is a hunger for it to say, man, I want to know how to do it the right way. Now, I'll be honest, throughout my experience in a lot of the businesses that I've been in the beginning of the journey, I've always had a very bad experience. Not all, but in the beginning of most, I've had a very bad experience in the beginning where the person on the other side of the table, I guess you would say, pulled like a shark move, right? Where it was like, whoa, why does business have to be this way? And of course, over time, I almost went down the route of, and believe it or not, indirectly, you helped me with this. I almost went down the route of, oh, I have to be like that, because if I'm not like that, then I'm going to lose.
Right.
And then I recognized that I actually don't have to be that way, that I can continue to do it the way I want to do it and set a new standard for how things ought to be done in the business world, especially for people in our community. And so that took a lot of work, a lot of practice to kind of hone that in, but also stop the business world from taking advantage of me. And so with that, I'm now realizing, bringing this whole thing back full circle, with that, I'm now realizing that the stuff that often people may overlook, or you may yourself overlook because it comes so natural to you, you're almost so good at it that you think nobody will really care for it. It's one of the most important areas that you need to build around. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was just the understanding of the business world, of understanding how operations and business development should work and how the two interchange each other in terms of being able to build out something sustainable or rock solid for us to stand on. So I guess in short, I'm saying there is a personal mission behind it that's tied into it. And then there is that more tactical side of, wow, I almost gave away something that I didn't think was that deep because I was so good at it, or it came so natural to me. And so I say naturally undervalued the ability to do it. And now as I'm recognizing the importance of it, I'm now seeing that not only should I do it or hold it at a high value, but it also comes with a level of responsibility to teach it to others and almost borderline push and force them into it so that they can be able to build enough muscle to stand on their own and say, oh, okay, I get it now. I understand why you were pushing me in the space of making money or generating revenue or really doing the maybe uncomfortable business side of things, because it all makes sense. It brings this thing back full circle. So I think that's a little bit of what I would say on my front in terms of why, just answering the why piece, why it's important to me, if y'all wanted to know why it's important to me that, that we all look at what we do from a branding side or a content side and say, I have to take the business side of this thing serious.
So, okay. So here's my question, right? So I know you stated where now it's more both revenue and community, right? At what point did you maybe come to true terms like, oh, wait, no, community is like revenue is important? Because, and I have my own reasons why revenue is important. Revenue is important. That is a really key important to running and scaling a business. Absolutely. But at what point did it like, oh, okay, hold on, maybe we got to add this component too?
Yeah, truth be told, I this year, this year is when I recognized the importance of community, and a lot of it has to do with like as I really think back on it, I think I was more of a community person, but I didn't call it that. I didn't know that there would be true value in it. And it's really because I come from a sports background. And so when you think about the essence of sports, sports is community, right? It's being able to work in a team toward a common goal, helping and supporting each other for the most part. Now, on when I recognized it from a business standpoint was this year. And what probably delayed my ability to see it is that I was, I don't even know what to call what was happening during maybe after 2020, like the end of 2020 into 2021. I don't know what was going on to me, but I feel as though I was in some level of amnesia. Like I was awake, I was functional, I was moving, but I wasn't really alive. Yeah, if that's a way to say it. And I don't want to make it sound like, super dramatic or traumatic, but it was weird in the sense that I felt like I was going through the motions, but I wasn't able to see with the level of clarity as to what's really happening, or what are the impacts and the connections between what's happening, or what does this mean and versus what does that mean. And so it took some time to connect the dots. And so this year, I would say is when it really started to click for me. And I tied it back to more of those positive elements, like, oh, community is in a lot of ways like team or like team sports, where you're helping people get to levels that they didn't know were possible for themselves, or you're holding them accountable to, say, showing up to training and practice every day, to follow through on the daily routine or the daily regimen that will get them to game day. And when I started making the connection and seeing, and honestly, I don't think it's just me who feels this way. I think there's a lot of people in the marketplace who are recognizing how lonely it can be when you're trying to get out of an environment that is, say, broken or uncomfortable. And that was where you were naturally birthed. You grew up in this space. That was your life. And you get to a point where you get fed up and say, I don't want this anymore. And I'm now seeing examples that better exist out there. And so it is so helpful to have that space available to you, where others are saying, yeah, you know what, I come from there too, but yeah, it's whatever. Like, I don't allow that to hold me back, because this is becoming my new family. And I bet those are terms that you've probably heard around community, where it's like, this has become my new family, or this hour of the day is what I look to and set up my entire week around. And that's when I started to make the connections this year and say, no, this is important. You have to take it serious.
Okay, I'm with that.
Yeah.
I like that. Hold on. I like the realization. You know what I mean? I like the realization. Anyways.
Yeah, it took some time to wake up to, but it's I think we all go through those cycles in connecting and trying to make sense of it all. But I mean, obviously you probably have been someone who has seen it all along, or you've advocated for it all along, even when it wasn't popular. Like the cool thing about, and shout out to everyone who listened to our last podcast episode. If you haven't, definitely wait until about another 41 minutes and go check out episode 114. Really good episode.
Facts.
But in that clip, it's now you're starting to realize people are talking about the importance of community and content and the two together, and how it's even now imperative for businesses to have those two elements, right, included in it to make things happen. But what did you see dating back to, heck, it's got to be 3-4 years that you've been advocating for this, maybe even more? What did you see then And why were you advocating for it when it wasn't popular? And sorry, and I'm gonna just add one piece to it. And then what does that do for you now when you realize, or when you see that people are like, yo, community, community, community? Like, what does that make you do now?
So you got to think about it. Like, there's certain lessons, certain quotes we continue to hear over and over again. And so one of the things that you continuously hear is like, entrepreneurship is lonely. Building a business is lonely. Like, you hear those different things. And so you have to think of a solution if you continuously hear something over and over again, right? So if there are people who, and they're still to this day, pay thousands of dollars to get in the room just to talk to people. If you really break it down, we're not paying for information anymore. We're just paying for access, right? And we're seeing, or we've heard countless of times, people paying for different masterminds, people paying to go to different retreats, and it's always boils down back to being around people, which is community, right? Now, understanding that means people who are attracted to your brand or know of your brand, there are more people like that. And if you was to put them in one spot to do a certain journey, to do a certain achievement, to create a certain transformation, there are people who are willing to do that because they understand that maybe in the environment that they're in, that, there's not other people like them. And so if you, as the brand, as the business, open up a spot that say, hey, this is welcome to all people who are like this. There's a runners club, there are, even from a simple standpoint of Hall of Famers, only you get to get invited in certain spots if you are part of this community. We've seen it all along. It's just starting to really get popular and being put in the non-traditional ways, meaning a clothing brand can have a community. A TV company can have a community. Apple has a community, strong community that we've brought up multiple times. And they didn't even intentionally created a community. They already understood that, people like our brand, less, and I can almost put money on that they somehow sparked a battle between Android to push more of the community, right? But from a people standpoint, that makes sense. But also from a business standpoint, it makes sense too, because it is easier to sell to people who rock with you than cold audiences. So if you gather everybody for something and then you upsell them to or expose them to a product or a service, they're more likely to convert than you going and fishing for new customers and new clients and new leads over and over and over again. And so that's why now brands and businesses are starting to really come closer to community, because it's like, oh, wait, as we were so concentrated on money, we're totally blind that the money is in the people. And if we make them feel included, make them feel as if we are doing this together, showing them that this is a movement, then we can actually make more money by doing so, by putting people first. And so now that I'm seeing it, I'm like, okay, people are just catching on now. People are understanding that without people, there is no brand. Without clients, customers, leads, we don't necessarily have the reach and the conversions that we've been seeking for. So we have to create community. We have to cater to community. We have to make them feel included in a world where they may not feel so included in. They may not feel so accepted in, right? There are people who are iPad users, right? There are, and that need to figure out how to do it or how to best set it up for productivity. There are people who are streamers. There are podcasters. There are so many candle makers or candle collectors. There's a community for everybody because this is such a world where you go outside, you're not always feeling accepted. So at least our brands can create a sense of safety and acceptance and status for people who may not have that in the real world. And that actually means way more for people sometimes than, okay, let me just go to, I gotta make money, let me go to the people who will make me money. Sometimes that means more to be accepted than to make money. Sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like this question. It says, how do you prepare yourself to deal with multiple personalities, energies, and vibes when building a community, especially when you have a loner personality?
You get somebody who has the opposite personality, because that will drain
like
you.
it.
A community
I
will.
like it.
I'm telling you, we now have grown our community to over 2,000 people. And so if you are not a people person, that can seem very overwhelming. That can be, and even today, like some people are just very blunt. Some people are understanding. Some people are in between, right? And so if you don't necessarily like talking to people on a reg, like you have to put people in place in order to take care of those issues so you can possibly just think of the vision of the community, right? You don't necessarily, like for me, I have a limit. Like I'm super active in the community and things like that, but I do know customer service is not always the greatest for me, depending on how somebody asks me a question. I've gotten a lot better though. Praise God. I've gotten a lot better. But I do have people that take care of the customer service situation, right? Who would answer those questions with no problem. Shout out to Kurt, right? So having people in place for when there are problems, for when there needs to be interaction for people who are loners, you may want to look into that. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that definitely is important, and I think you need to establish some almost like ground rules for yourself when building that type of community, or even when engaging in one of them, because if you don't set some level of boundary around, say, how active you want to be in there, what is the goal of being there? So I even think about it where one of the almost bad community mis not misconceptions, but approaches that some people will often engage in, and they won't even know that they're doing it, is that they'll only come into the community when they need something. Meaning that they have requests, they have questions, they're looking for people to bounce ideas off, and they're only doing that when it benefits them. And so it's like, unbeknown to you, you are really more of a taker. Like, that's not what the essence of community is. The essence of a community is both give and take. There's a level of service that's included in community that's important. And so I think with that, you got to think about, okay, what are the almost the rules of engagement that I want to take part in when I build this community, or when I'm a part of a community? How much do I want to give? How much do I want to take? How much do I want to be active and engaging and conversating? How much time am I going to make to meet with people outside of the group or outside of the community? Because that's what often ends up happening as well. It's like, oh, you're into this? Me too. Let's connect. Mm-hmm. And so how much of that do you actually want to do with it so that it doesn't interrupt from your, say, personal battery, like in terms of how much energy you have for engaging? So those are definitely some things that I would say, like just from a routine standpoint and boundaries, tighten that up so that you don't go into a space like that and almost start suffering, not knowing why. And it's because of something like that.
Big facts. Hold on. Now, my question for you is, now that there's an importance of community, what is your thought or strategy in order to keep that balance of revenue and community?
Yeah. So I like to think that there is a group of people within the community who are constantly, think of them as the A-type personalities of the group, meaning that they're getting into the community and they're immediately in competition, trying to be at the highest level of what the community has to offer. They're looking to just be the best. They're looking to do everything as quickly as possible. And they're going to turn over every nook and cranny, every rock to figure out what's there and what's not, so that they can put themselves in position to get further ahead. And that's where the revenue conversation really starts to open up and become a main idea, because you want to leverage that. Now, again, in my experience, and I've been on the internet for about 7 years, in the beginning of my journey, because that's not naturally how I am, I put my gloves up. I was more on defense mode toward those people, because I'm like, man, why are you trying to disrupt what we're doing? We're more about learning. We're more about this. But I realized that those are actually great assets or great people to have within a community, because they start to show what's possible for the next wave of people who are coming in, or the people who typically just take a while to get going. And so rather than trying to shut those down, that opens up room for the balance between community and revenue, where it's like, you're right. Not to downplay it, but community is in some ways the beginning of the journey. It's about you, let's think about it, mastering your message, getting to know your audience, figuring out your content strategy, setting up your offer. Let's leverage the community for that. But when you want to go a little bit deeper, you do have to now go out into the marketplace and start generating revenue with everything that you've constructed in the community. And so that becomes the nice balance that you have. And it doesn't have to be an attack toward what you've built within the community. So that's what I love about that. It's like, okay, now let's get you out there and start building in that space. And you can serve as proof that this works. You can also make room for people to come behind you and believe that it's possible for them too. And it starts just a beautiful cycle, almost like a positivity parade, as I've been calling it, where people start to see the opportunity also exists for them. Because one of the main things that end up happening, or could happen, is people in the community it's crazy. They're in the community. They have access to the same information. They are doing everything that everybody else is doing. They're literally, all things are equal. But in their minds, there's a tremendous gap between themselves and everybody else, or themselves and the person teaching, or that is the leader of the space. Because they say, well, these things only work for you, but they could never work for me.
Right.
And so breaking that myth, or looking for ways to say, no, that is not true, it works for everybody. I think that's where you start to really say, okay, there's a system here. Like there's a tried and true system or a method that can help generate equal results or similar results for everyone involved. So I think in a lot of ways, that's the balance to it, Nix, and being able to say, yes, start here, let's leverage this or kind of balance it with this, and then allow the two to build each other, so that you're not having to be the only one saying, hey, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And it's like, oh, you're only saying that because you have to.
You don't have to do anything, but I understand. I
That's
get it.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
I get it. No, I ain't mad at that. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I just wanted to understand the balance in your head.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think beyond it for me, and I hope this doesn't come off like it's a like a money grab situation or like a hunger for money. But again, I think that ultimately is the difference between those who we say we look up to or are wanting to be in similar spaces to them, is that they found a way to be comfortable in both situations. They're happy in community, they're comfortable in community, but they're also very comfortable in the RGAs or the revenue generating activity or in the business element of it all. And so that to me is even more proof why you have to start looking at what you're doing and thinking about it in terms of a business. There's just more to it, when it happens in that space.
That's fair. That's fair.
Another set of air horns.
Just
Another
saying.
set of air horns.
Hey, you're on a
What
roll.
what
I'm with it.
what about you though? Because like you said last week, we we tend to balance each other out in that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, should I do this for 1,500? It's like, no, you should do this for 6,500.
Yeah.
There's like a nice balance that comes to it. But I think you're now becoming open to this concept of the business side of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's your perspective on it now? Is it like, okay, like I'm involved, but I still don't really care, or no, I see the importance of it, and so I need to take this more serious because it's going to contribute to the greater good.
So I look at it in two ways, right? So one, to continue to create an amazing community, there needs to be funds. And also to keep the community accountable, there has to be a level of investment, right? So I look at it in those two ways of understanding that I can serve my behind off. It's limited to, let's say, for example, Instagram is limited to the free platform and being able to communicate with them when Instagram allows me to. But if there is funds that are made, that I'm able to create a different platform in order to bring the community in, then I can understand. I have now a new motivation to continue to bring money in, right? Now, I will say there is there still needs to be for me a balance of pricing, right? So this is why I go to Moose from other situations like speaking gigs and product launches and things like that, right? With the community though, understanding the customer journey and where we are trying to go with it, what does that level of investment for them looks like, right? What does continuing education and access looks like, right? Because I'm over I'm over that era of selling information. I don't necessarily care for that. But what is the level of access, implementation, and accountability that we are providing, right? And that increases the investment, right? So for me now, I'm looking at it in that sense because now we're about to roll out something that allows like live classes, right? Live content creation classes, live business classes if Moose wants to come through. But you know, things like that, right? That now, you know, people will truly see the value in and want to be a part of, want to watch, want to be a part of the implementation part of it, you know. And I'm understanding, one, I have to be able to fund that thought and make it into reality. And so the revenue side of things makes a little bit more sense. There's a little bit more eagerness, understanding there has to be certain goals in order to make things happen. Because now it's we have everybody in a certain platform that will make some updates throughout the week, but there is a bigger vision that would require maybe possibly having our own platform, right? And not just white labeling a situation, like literally our own platform. That's going to take some funds. That's understanding, you know, what are the different streams that are not only just coming from the community side, but from the different departments of the actual, you know, of the actual company. So I'm more open to it where I'm still putting people first as far as their growth, as far as their acceptance and safety, but understanding that as we grow, it's going to need a new environment, and new environments cost money. So let's figure this part out. I mean,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So well said too. So well said. The accountability, the access piece, and going away from charging for information, I think is definitely a way to create, say, separation, because it can get almost a little old, if you will. Somebody said, is did they just get a hint about the announcement tomorrow?
yeah,
Is that
there's a there's a bit of a change coming to the platform, making it easy. Once again, I'm big on experience, right? So what makes it easy for people to come into a brand new platform and not feel overwhelmed, understand what next steps are, you know, see what's available. So during this week, I make an announcement tomorrow in the community, but during this week we're making some changes that we want to make them aware of. And so, you know, we, based off this podcast, we lead with transparency. So a company that takes their people through what the journey is has been really favored lately. So why make the change behind the scenes and then voila, and you're like, hold on, I didn't know, I didn't like this change. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
I didn't appreciate it. So now taking and understanding, and that's why I love this podcast, right? That's why I love our show, because it literally helps in these process of even us growing. So taking the transparency route, putting it into the community as we make changes, as we grow, they are with us step by step. And so they have the choice to be like giving feedback too. Like, yo, I like that. No, I don't like that. Yo, you should change this up. What about this? Because then it allows us to have a voice towards the platform as well. So feedback is so important when it comes to the brand, because I don't want to run blind and assume what an audience wants, a community wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotta agree with what you said, man. And I don't know if it probably builds on something you said earlier too, but the idea of sell people things that they want to buy.
Yes.
It's going to be so much more enjoyable for you to be in business when that's your approach, versus you wanting to get your products or your services in everybody's hands, but not everybody may want what you want. There's a specific group of people who care for the value that you present. And if you could spend more of your time trying to get that service or that product into those people's hands by figuring out what their wants and needs are and catering to them, business becomes a lot more enjoyable. Building a brand becomes a lot more enjoyable because you don't feel as though you're getting rejected or as though people are turning down or being unappreciative of your efforts and everything that you're doing. So you talk about some of the things that have changed for me this year. That's one of them. It's saying, why am I focused on trying to convince people who may not be interested, who may not know the vision, in making a large investment? Why shouldn't I, instead of going to the people who have already shown interest and said, man, I really appreciate what you're doing here, or I love what you have built here, or we want to be a part of more of what you guys are doing there. That's the group that you want to cater to. That's the group that you want to serve. And I think that opens up the part of what you mentioned as community. So I think as I bring it, and really think about how it came to me, I think that was an element of it too, is realizing that you're going to build so much faster and have a lot more fun doing it when you're thinking about, or when you focus on serving those who already want to be in community with you, who ultimately want to do business with you, versus trying to convince the non-believers to finally believe. And if you can just show the process, if you could just be like, all right, well, let me show you behind the scenes as to what's happening and why we're doing this and what we're doing. Eventually the non-believers start peeking in too, like, wait, let me see what you got going on right here. Mm-hmm. And that's when you start to reach some like really, really, really dope scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I don't think showing more hurts. I think it could only help and build curiosity, kind of like what you said. Like I'm getting more into like showing inside of the community. Look, this is the challenge that we have going on. Look, we're in day 5, we're in day 6, and having people like, man, maybe I should be in there. Maybe I should, even for those people who are in there, man, maybe I should participate. There's nothing wrong with showing what's behind the curtain, even though people pay for that, or oh my God, this is exclusive. What if somebody gets outside and duplicates your stuff? Like, we went over that too on the podcast, the last podcast. If somebody steals your idea, me personally, I'm never worried about that. I'm just not. Like, do you know how many ideas I come up with? No, like, really. Do you know how many ideas I come up with? I have one right now. If somebody gave me a topic, I could come up with another idea. I don't struggle with ideas. It's more on, you know what? Let's document the process. Everything that I am doing, especially in 2023, is going to be more documented, more out there. I may be more outside. We'll see. That's a discussion. That's really a discussion. But even that, being intentional with maybe the trips I do is, for example, Isaiah always going to be with me, making sure that certain things are documented from the relationship side, from just the curiosity side of just exploring, from the building side of the calls and the community and that whole nine. Like, how are we being able to truly within ourselves become a media company, just within ourselves first, not even deeper than the brand, but like production, nothing like that. Like, can we become our own network before promoting that? That's kind of how my mindset. I know this went a little off, but it randomly hit me. So
that's there. Yeah, that's there. So that's good. That's good. Well, what do you think about this? So NYCDR said you have a perfect niche, focusing on platforms, content creation, and so on, because that's ever evolving. Mm-hmm. So you'll never run out of things to teach and share. So it makes sense to stay in your community. Do you think that's only the case because you're in a space of something like, as mentioned there, ever evolving? Or do you think that, nah, that's the case for any and everything?
Um, it could be the case for any and everything if you understand how to evolve with the times, right? So, meaning media per se, just to use the example because they used it. Media in itself always evolves, but is radio as relevant as, let's say, podcasting? Is, let's say, we'll go with just the regular TV shows. Are they as relevant, the commercials, as relevant as possibly Facebook ads, YouTube ads, that whole nine? Everything evolves. Talk about fashion. Fashion evolves. It's how do you, as the thought leader, right, evolve with it? So as for me, as content evolves, right? Whoa, whoa, hold on. We global.
Shout out to Cambodia. Yeah, what's up, yo?
That's
Come on
huge.
with it.
That's huge. But as content evolves, I'm going to evolve. My team is going to evolve, right? As branding evolves, we're going to evolve, right? As business evolves, Moose is going to evolve and then include me somehow and let me know about all this, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing with AI right now, being able to take a regular picture and transform it into so many things. That's what's trending on all social media platforms now, where you go into an app, you upload 10 to 20 pictures, and it makes you an avatar in all different universes, cartoon statuses. It's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily like my niche that I'm safe in, right? It's who you are in an industry and how do you evolve with that, right? There's always evolving with tech. There's always evolving with fashion. There's always evolving with, let's say, paint. Paint has evolved into different technology and things like that. Like you just can't be like narrowed in too much into a specific, let's say, skill if you're trying to be a thought leader. You feel what I'm saying? Like you do that to build the trust, but you also in the back end continue to research in order to evolve when that particular skill set may not be as relevant as it would be maybe 10 years from now, right? Can something else happen that may not make that as relevant? And are you staying on top of it to go with the flow? That's kind of like, yes, content is ever changing because content used to just be audio. Content used to just be written, right? So now it's something else and we just go with it.
Yeah. Innovation. I mean, innovation. That's ultimately what it comes down to. You know, if you think about it, I was giving this example earlier about how Apple was the first company to hit $1 trillion evaluation. Mm-hmm. They still came out with new products the following year.
Yes.
The cycle never stops for them. And so that's why I love being able to get to a point just within our own discipline of being able to take what we do seriously, because you start to recognize the importance of that. You recognize that winning is a journey thing. It's not a seasonal thing. It's not, oh, I won once. I've satisfied my needs and my desires. And so I can sit back and be okay, because there's always another season. There's always another almost thing to be done and almost immediately after as well. And so, yes, celebrate your wins and have fun with it, but get back in the game. And I think the only people who really embody that mentality are those who really take what they do serious, that they want to continue to show up and figure out, well, what is the next thing? If I won in 2020, well, what does winning look like in 2021? If I won in 2022, what does winning look like in 2023? And just that desire to stay in it for the long haul, you almost even bring back some things to life that might have went out of style because of the trust that you might have built with a specific group of people or an audience that say, oh, wow, that's what you are now. You know what? I'm willing to try it because I trust you. And you're saying that this is where it's going. And so, yeah, innovation is very critical when it comes to those things because, again, some things may come out of style, but you're right. You can find a way to bring it back and show the need or show the value and appreciation for it where others may start to also feel the same way. So that is definitely a subjective thing, but never going out of style, really.
Facts. That was a great conversation.
It was. This was dope.
For the people who are watching live, when it comes to your brand in this season that you're in, what are you concentrating on? Revenue or community, right? No right or wrong answer. We just want to know what season that you're in. If you're watching this replay, put that in the comments as well. Where are you in your brand right now as far as your focus? Revenue or community, right? Or both. You can say both if you want to, right? I think that's the goal eventually for everybody. I think me and Moose reached our leveling of both later on. We both had our sides of things, and now we come together and understand. Still one dominant of the other, right? So he's still dominant in the revenue and the business side, but understands the community side. I'm still dominant on the community side, but understand the revenue side just in order to continue to do what I do. So yeah. We both support each other and each community and revenue status, but would love to know what you guys think, of course. And I'm seeing it in, shout out to Isaiah, revenue for the community. Okay, all right. Revenue for the community. We got community. We got both. Shout out to KP. Rich says community then revenue. I'm learning that winning is definitely a journey that you have to be willing to take. Okay, all right. Both. Focusing on growing the brand through community. I love the context of it.
Some good titles right here.
Right. Revenue, but tonight you taught me a lot about also focusing on community and building community. Continue to comment, leave it in the chat, leave it in the comment section. We read them. We appreciate you. You know what I mean? Shout out to Vaughn. Vaughn comes through, I think, once a month. Shout out to Vaughn. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But we are out. Listen, do me a favor, please and thank you. Listen to the podcast. It's because of you. We are on the charts, but we need to be higher on the charts. Okay? So listen to it, share it on your stories, share it through text messaging, direct message, email. You want to email it, your favorite episode, to your email list, because we all should be growing an email list, people, or text list, however you want to go about it. So please share that. Our full video experience drops every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Come chill with us in the live chat. It will be premiering. Okay. Moose, you got anything else to say?
No, man. Both are important. Just know that for the lifeline of your brand and business, and for what people in your community are going to be looking for, they're looking for both too. So just make sure you give them an opportunity to engage in both cycles.
Engage. What was that?
Engage. Maybe I said it a little. Engage in both cycles. Give them an opportunity.
You said it like wrong and then right, and then you combined it. It was really cool. It wasn't even bad. Good. It was just really cool. But anyways, all right, people. You know what we're gonna say.
Peace, y'all.